I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about episode 9 of series 18. I can't believe we're on the second to last episode already. I feel like this has gone really quickly. This episode I think was really good as well, starting off really strong with Alex's banter section with the would you rather and the best option always being £10 cash. Greg obviously choosing it 4 times and then giving the 40 quid to a very lucky woman in the audience. So that I think was really funny and I think a great way to start this episode. The prize task I think was really strong as well, and this was the best item that you could put things in that isn't an item that you would normally put things in. So not a typical container, basically. We started off with Jack bringing in this Christmas scene, which he says he stores batteries in, which I think is quite clever. I think everybody, whenever you run out of batteries, there's always one thing where you're like, there'll be batteries left in that, and then you go take them out of that. So in a way, it is storing batteries. So I like this one. I don't think it's that creative though, which is probably why it scores quite lowly. And you're not really putting in something that's not typical, so you are putting in something that's meant to be put in there. You're just kind of twisting the purpose of it. We then had Emma bringing in a bag that she made herself, which she turned a pair of jeans into a bag, which I thought was really clever, and then sticking a baguette in it as well. I just thought it looked really cool. I liked how passionate Emma was about it and how, Greg was like, oh, well, that's actually a really clever idea. I also liked Greg shutting down Alex's thing about saying that, oh, don't jeans store your legs. I think Greg was right to shut that down. I thought this prize was so good. I think it's a genuinely interesting prize to win as well. It's something that you'd be happy to win. I just think it's really quirky, it's really funny, and a good prize. Baba brought in a biscuit tin, and I understand where he's going with this. I definitely feel like he was thinking of this as a container that's storing something that you wouldn't expect to be storing in. So it's not that what's basically shown on the tin. It's storing something else in, which, wasn't the task. The task was to be something that's not used to contain something. And his biscuit tin that holds a sewing kit is a container. It is a tin. It's used to hold things. So, unfortunately for him, he did get it mixed up. I love that he admitted to messing it up as well. As Greg said, I think it's something that is quite a standard thing. Unfortunately for Baba, it didn't work out very well, but I think just him just resigning to the fact that he got it wrong was really funny. It's just kind of nice to see that a little bit, as opposed to just arguing something where it's wrong. I just loved that he gave in. We then had Rosie bringing in a bra, which I think is quite classic. I think most women will know that if you run out of pockets and you need to put things somewhere, your bra is a good place for it to go. So this was quite a classic prize in my opinion for this category. And it meant that more money went to the woman in the audience. I love the selection of things that she put in the picture. Obviously not all of that you would want to put in your bra, especially the fried chicken. I thought it was really funny. And then finally we had Andy bringing in the toilet. He had stuff in the toilet bowl, stuff in the cistern behind it. I love that he included some of his other prizes. It's his previous prizes in this. So we saw the elixir of eternal life in there and the mosquito aftershave in there as well, which I quite enjoyed. I generally agree with how Greg scored this one. So he gave 1 point to Baba as expected, 2 points to Jack, which I personally agree with. Then he gave 3 to Rosie and 4 to Andy. Personally, to me, I would say those two were on the same level. That's the only point that I disagree with. I perhaps would have either given them both 3 or maybe both 4. I don't know. Personally, for me, I can't really distinguish between them. I think they're both quite good. And then Emma obviously got 5 points, which I fully agree with. The first proper task of this episode was to walk exactly 1 furlong in exactly 10 minutes. And they weren't allowed to use any piece of technology except for making 3 5-second phone calls, which I thought was a fun addition to this task. And they also couldn't remove the hat. I'm assuming the hat had a distance calculator or a step calculator or something, GPS or something, so they could work out how far they had walked. I'm assuming that's what that was. So definitely makes sense why they couldn't take that off, because A, they could see how far they were going, and B, it would mess up the calculations for this task. So to begin with, we had Jack, Emma and Baba all grouped together to see first. and they all used the phone calls. That was the main way of them getting information. None of them knew how long a furlong was, so they all attempted to call somebody. Jack was trying to call his son, Emma was trying to call his mum, and Baba called a number of friends who didn't pick up. I loved how no one picked up his phone, but he eventually got through to one of his friends. His approach for this was quite weird. Like, he called the friend, asked him how long a furlong was, and said he would call him back, and then called him back immediately. Like, he wouldn't have had time to look it up unless he thought his friend would just know how long it was. But yeah, he was told it was 20 yards, and his attempt was to just walk around because he didn't know how long a yard was, which was really funny. And he should not have won this task, but I absolutely love the fact that he did win this task. It was just completely luck that he managed to walk for pretty much exactly 10 minutes and very, very close to what a furlong is. So yeah, absolutely amazing. I was just so shocked that he won, but I love it. As I said, Jack was calling his son. His son didn't really seem to understand what was going on. I mean, I would be very confused if somebody called me up asking how long a furlong was and kept hanging up, so I'm not surprised. But yeah, he had a little workaround for this, was that he was allowed to answer the phone call from his son, which personally, I don't think he should have got away with. I liked his idea behind it. I don't think I would count it as one of the 3 5-second phone calls. Definitely not. But it is using technology. So yeah, that I think is breaking the rules. And Emma did, bring this up in the studio, saying that's using technology. And this, I think it's probably a play on the previous episode, where Emma was making jokes about how Alex is soft for Jack, and he favours Jack, and he's a bit shy and stuff. So I think that's probably what Alex was getting at, and was carrying on that joke. But I feel like he was just making excuses for Jack. And I think, rightly pointing out that Emma also apparently used her watch, which also would definitely count as technology. So maybe they just made a decision not to disqualify either of them because they both used technology. But I personally think it was a pretty clear rule. I think they both should have got disqualified because, yeah, it was very clear they couldn't use any technology apart from making those 3 phone calls. I think answering a phone is using technology, and I think looking at your watch is using technology. So yeah, I'm very surprised that they didn't disqualify them, especially because Greg can be quite harsh on those sort of things. I'm very surprised that didn't happen. I don't know what you guys think about that. Do you think they should have got disqualified? But anyway, Emma also we'll leave that for a bit. Emma also, as I said, called her mum. Her mum told her it was 8 miles. So obviously her mum didn't know. Again, maybe should have given a bit more time in between to Google it, or said, please Google it. But yeah, so Emma also ended up just walking around and just trying to get the 10 minutes. I feel like if, it worked for Baba, but just try and get the 10 minutes and just walk around for 10 minutes, you'd probably get pretty close. I am very surprised that nobody thought to use a dictionary, because that's not technology. And that would probably be in there as a definition. And there's loads of books around the Taskmaster house, so you'd think there'd be some sort of way of looking that up without using technology. And I also think in terms of the timing, you could very easily find a 1 minute egg timer, hourglass thing that just gives you 1 minute. So you could then just do that 10 times and get pretty much bang on 10 minutes. So I definitely think there are workarounds that they didn't think of. Because my first thought was, okay, well, we've got to find a book of some sort that tells me how long a furlong is, because I didn't know. So yeah, I would have been a bit screwed. Because there's probably people I would know who would know how long a furlong is. But, there's the whole, will they answer the phone? Will they understand what you're saying in the 5 seconds? There's a lot of issues with that. So obviously, as it's intended to be difficult. But yeah, I definitely think there's probably other workarounds that they could have found. But I guess they might have thought that they don't want to run around trying to find something, because that would then add to their distance. So they'd have to take that in consideration as to how long the furlong is. So yeah, I guess it's a difficult task. We then had Rosie and Andy paired together. Andy knew how long a furlong was, obviously linking it to cricket and saying it was about the length of a cricket run. I don't know much about cricket, but it worked for Andy. He did, I think they said 9 cricket runs, so it was just a little bit under the furlong measurement, and he wasn't that close to 10 minutes. He was like 8.5 minutes. But yeah, I think he had a good attempt. He obviously knew, he had an advantage with the fact that he knew how long a furlong was. He didn't use any of his phone calls either, and neither did Rosie, to her detriment. She definitely should have used a phone call, because she thought a furlong was something to do with measuring horses, which I don't know if that's true, but I think if you're like measuring the height of a horse, that's in like hands. So yeah, I knew she was on the wrong track, but I don't know, it might have something to do with like how far they run or something. I don't know. But yeah, she definitely could have been a little less confident on this one and called somebody or tried to confirm what she thought. Which she obviously wouldn't have been able to do, but at least then she could have walked around. But she was good on the 10-minute part of it. So with this, Rosie got 1 point, Jack got 2 points, Emma got 3, Andy got 4, and Baba wins this task with 5 points. Absolutely amazing attempt from Baba. Just incredible. I love it when somebody like accidentally wins. But yeah, personally, I do feel that Jack and Emma should have got disqualified, or at least had their points reduced. They both used technology. I think using a watch is very obviously using technology, and receiving a phone call is using technology. So yeah, very surprised that they didn't get disqualified, and very surprised that nobody else in the studio argued for them getting disqualified either. The next task in this episode was to clean the most profound picture of nature on a dirty thing. This I quite like as a creative task. I think it's quite different to other things they've done before. You know, you've got the added thing of having to find or make something dirty. So yeah, and then obviously cleaning it, you're using different things, so you're not using paint. You've got to think a little bit more creatively about it. And I think because they had to be more creative, it meant that everybody went with something completely different, both in terms of what they were drawing and also what item they were drawing on. This, I think, makes it a really strong task because it forces them all to be different, and also encourages like different ways of thinking and different methods that they could use, so it's more entertaining for us as like the audience. Jack drew the Tower Bridge in London on the caravan window. I do think this is quite a simple drawing. I would also argue whether or not it is nature. It is, I mean, I guess what your definition of nature is. Whenever I think of nature, I think of like trees, plants, rivers, mountains, that kind of thing, not really cities. I'm not sure whether it technically does count in terms of cities. I did like his painting. You know, it was recognisable. I like this, you know, he said, oh, there's the sun setting in the background. But personally, I do think it was a little bit too simple and didn't really feel like me to like a picturesque nature, extraordinary picture. Andy cleaned Italy into a mannequin's leg, which personally I didn't think worked really at all. I liked his creativeness, but I don't think it didn't look cleaner as what it started with. I don't think it looked like Italy at all. And yeah, it just didn't really work for me. I liked the idea of like turning, like, you know, Italy looks like a foot, you know, it kind of works on that aspect. But yeah, I just think it didn't look very, very good, and the actual item wasn't that dirty to begin with, and as they did point out, he did make it even more dirty, so I don't think it was a very great attempt, and he did seem a little bit like, not embarrassed by it, but he knew it wasn't that good. But I loved him trying to defend it by pointing out that like others didn't show the history that his did and things like that. Baba drew a tree in like the pavement with a pressure washer, and I definitely think he chose the most fun thing to do. I think using a pressure washer to draw something in the pavement would be quite fun. And he drew a tree which also looked like a nuclear bomb, like, you know, like the mushroom cloud, and also somehow had a link to the Jackson 5 in it, which I didn't see. I couldn't really understand what that was supposed to be. I think if he just said it was a tree, that would have been fine. I think it just looked like a tree. But I did love the AB tree joke. I thought that was really funny. But yeah, I think his, again, was quite simple. I think for me, it's on the same par as Jack's, but I think Baba's is more picturesque. It's more of like the nature aspect that was defined in the task. So personally for me, I would have scored Baba a little bit above Jack. We then had Rosie, who decided to put her face in a plate covered in let's hope, chocolate spread. I do think it looked quite cool. I liked you could see like the definitions of her face in it, the hair in the back. I thought it looked quite nice. But again, it's not really nature, so I don't really think it fits the category that well. But then we had Emma's, which was the New Zealand scenery painted into some mud on the ground, which was absolutely incredible. Like, I just loved how everybody just like was, wow, that's amazing. Like, I just thought it looked so good. There was like depth to it. Like, there was little green on the bottom, which looked like grass, and like the mountains had like different colours and textures in it. I just thought it was absolutely amazing. Like, I feel like it's one of those things that if you then set out to try and do again, you wouldn't be able to do it. It was just like one of those chance things that you just kind of go in with an idea, it doesn't quite work, so you try and do something else and then it works. Like, it was just so good. I loved her song as well. I haven't even mentioned the little like song that she sang, the music that she made. I love that they played that over everyone's pictures to see how beautiful it was. And I also adore that they played it before each ad break. I just loved it. I thought it was so good. I just love it when they do little things like that. So I think the way that I would have scored it if it was me, I would have obviously given Emma 5 points and then maybe skipped 4 points. And yeah, I don't know how I would have scored it apart from that. Like, maybe given Baba 3 and Jack and Rosie 2 and then Andy 1, because I definitely think Jack and Rosie's was better than Andy's, but they didn't really include nature in it that much. So I think that's why Baba would personally get 1 more point than those two. Yeah, that's how I would have scored it. But Greg scored it by giving Emma 5 points, obviously. 4 points to Jack and Baba, 2 points to Andy and 3 points to Rosie. I think Andy got very lucky with the 2 points. I think that's very generous. But yeah, that's personally how I would have scored it. I just think the distinction needs to be made between Emma's and everybody else's, because yeah, hers was just so good. The next task was a team task, and for this one they had to place all the balls that were in the dome on the gutter and then balance the gutter on the cow. They couldn't touch the balls or they'd get a minute added onto their time, and if they dropped a ball and it hit the ground, then they would have 10 minutes added onto their time, which I think is really harsh. As we've seen the task, I think if you just dropped one, you would lose. Which I just think 10 minutes was quite harsh. Maybe they should have said 2. I think that would have made the task a little bit more doable. Like, if you dropped one, it wouldn't immediately be game over. The other rule was that the gutter couldn't enter the dome as well. And yeah, it had to balance on the cow. Like, you couldn't tape it down or anything like that. And yeah, it was fastest wins. So Jack and Rosie went first. They had some good ideas. They moved the cow closer to it. They put the cow on its side. It was able to balance the gutter on that way. Obviously, Jack had the idea of using tongs, which I think is everybody's first thought. And they had padlocked the kitchen, obviously, because using tongs is everybody's first thought. So I think that was quite a clever way of forcing them to think a little bit on their feet and a little bit more creatively and think of other solutions. In addition to this, there was also another rule that they couldn't use anything floppy in their attempts, so forcing them to not use a bag or anything like that. So Andy and Rosie found a curved pipe to put the balls in, which I definitely feel like they could have found something better, like a bowl, because yeah, the curved pipe really messed them up, and it was a little bit maddening to see them keep doing it and keep dropping the balls on the floor. So I think Jack found 2 like spoons and was using them to pick up the balls, which I thought was quite good. But I feel like it might have been easier for Jack to just take the balls from the dome and put them straight onto the gutter instead of using the curved pipe. Because yeah, they were just fling out. And obviously Jack messed up on the first attempt by putting them on a bit too quickly. So obviously they just rolled straight off. It was just not a great attempt. They really struggled with this one, and they were saying, oh, we did a great job, we smashed it. But yeah, it really didn't work for them. They got like an hour added onto their time because they dropped it 6 times, which I'm surprised it was only 6. It seemed like it was a lot more than that. There was a ball left on the floor at the end of the task. I'm not sure if that just fell off after, because it definitely seemed like they had all the balls on when the whistle was blown. But yeah, there was a ball on the floor. I'm sure they would have mentioned it if it would have led them to be disqualified. But I think the way that they kind of left it on the screen didn't lead me to think that that was going to be something that they would pull up in the studio and talk about, but they didn't, so I assume it fell off after the whistle had been blown. We then had the team of threes attempt, and I think this is probably the most perfect attempt that we've had in a team task. Everything they did worked perfectly, and they worked amazingly together as a team. So again, they had the idea to move the cow closer, and they just balanced the gutter on the cow stood up. They thought of putting it in Andy's helmet, so that was really smart. They thought of tongs, went to the kitchen. Oh no, it's locked. Then Baba realised he saw a key on the floor. Amazing. So yeah, they were able to get the tongs from the kitchen, which obviously helped them a lot. They had the helmet to put the stuff in, which was quite lucky for them. It was nice to see Andy's outfit put to use. A genuinely perfect attempt. And once they had all the things, they just got on with it and did it, and it went so smoothly. I liked the kind of roles that they had, like Emma being like the supervisor, watching over it, making sure everything was done correctly. I just love the dynamic. And as Emma said in the studio, she said it was like a very bonding experience. It definitely felt like that watching it. They just had such a great dynamic. They all knew what their roles were. They all had some great input into the task. They just worked so well together. And as I said, I think this is like a perfect attempt. Like nothing they did was wrong, which I think is quite rare. They did it in 8 minutes, which is incredible. And this is what I mean by, I think that 10-minute rule was quite harsh, because if Rosie and Jack had just dropped one ball, they still would have lost, which, I think is quite harsh. So I feel like if they'd done, if you touch it, 1 minute's added on, and if it goes on the floor, like maybe 2 or 3 minutes are added on. I think 10 minutes is insane. I think that's like so harsh. But the way Greg scored this was that he gave the team of 3 obviously 5 points, and then he gave Jack and Rosie 3 points each. Personally, I do think this is fair. As Alex pointed out, the team of 3 had 6 good arms, obviously implying that the team of 2 only had 2 good arms. And I think, there are rooms for, because of Rosie's disability, there are some tasks that she is a bit limited to, like obviously Jack had to do most of the work in that one, and there's no real way around it, whereas the team of 3 had 3 perfectly abled people to do this task. So I definitely think 3 points is fair, maybe 2 points, because as Emma rightly pointed out, is they did use a curved pipe, and they kept using the curved pipe when they knew it was not working. That's my opinion. I'd be interested to know what you guys think. We then had the studio task, and I really enjoyed this one. I think the studio tasks early in this season weren't my favourite, but I think the past 2 or 3 have been really strong, and this one is another really strong one. So they had to predict whether an item would float or not float. This is very similar to this task in series 16, where they had to guess whether the item would be heavier or lighter than the one before it. I like this kind of task because there's loads of little tricks that they use, and it's quite funny. It is difficult because you do know they're going to play tricks on you. They're going to put items that you think are heavy in there, and then they actually be really light, and vice versa. So it is really difficult for the contestants to predict which one's going to be a trick and which one's the real item. And then if it is the real item, you've got to think about whether or not that will actually float. For the first few ones, like Emma just seemed absolutely baffled by it, by the fact that a lime would sink and an orange would float. Like, I wouldn't have guessed that at all. Like, that seems like so counterintuitive. There are naturally tricky things, and then there's the added tricky things by them disguising items as being light or heavy. Obviously, as the audience, we knew that the rubber duck was going to sink because you could see it was wood, but obviously from the distance that they would have just seen a rubber duck. Andy was on a roll. It was genuinely quite impressive that he was getting every single one right. I wasn't sure whether he perhaps was predicting it or was just being lucky. Probably a mix of both. But I think it was overall a really good task. I think everybody had some good guesses, and some people had some really bad guesses as well. Very surprised that everybody said that the first egg would float, because that implies that you think they've got a rotten egg. So, and I don't think they would have done that. I mean, I guess they could have done, but for me, I definitely would have gone for sink on that one. And then unfortunately, Baba did get caught out by thinking the other egg would be different, but I think that's quite clever, having 2 eggs be having 2 items that are pretty much exactly the same, and you've got to guess is it exactly the same, or are they swapped it out for something else? So Andy won this task with Jack coming second, and then Emma, Baba and Rosie all shared joint third place. So this means that Emma wins the episode, taking her to 3 wins in the series so far, tied with Andy, so they've both won 3 episodes, whereas everybody else has only won 1, which I think is quite impressive for both of them. I'd be interested to see who wins at the next episode. Obviously, the next episode is the final episode, and I think it's been quite tight. I'm quite surprised that Rosie, though, is in last place. I thought she had quite a good run so far, but I think everybody is just quite good this season, so it obviously makes it a bit more competitive. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. It really helps the channel, and comment down below your thoughts on this episode. Subscribe if you want to see more videos to do with Taskmaster. I'll have some more out for you soon, and yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!